well, that's going to go on some merch. A big picture of a bear. And it's like, what are you teaching me? And the bear's just like, huh?
A galactic fur of KKs
invites you to Space Cat's Happy Hour.
Let your mind relax. We meet in a dimension outside of time,
where the playfully curious thrive.
So go on, fill your tin cup chalice with the sacred elixir of creativity. Laugh till you breathe violet flame at the theme's absurdity. And above all, let out your full-throated song with us.
Here at Space Cat's Happy Hour, with the galactic fur of KKs.
Yeah, baby. Welcome back to Space Cat's Happy Hour. I didn't even ask if you wanted to do the intro or not. I just jumped in because I'm so freaking excited.
I'm good. I just want to show I have my birthday cat drinking bubble tea sweatshirt on, and I am drinking bubble tea because it is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Zadikat Sun Portal. I have mezcal in your honor also, and I have my new house that you can see in the background. So
oh my God, this is the first recording from your new home. That's incredible.
Yeah, I'll take a little sip to that birthday and house.
Cheers. Fucking cheers.
Fucking cheers.
Okay, I do want to just quickly talk about what we were just talking about off air because it's really cool. At the risk of repeating myself, last year on my birthday, I found this store that sells in our neighborhood that sells old books, and especially like has a really great catalog of children's books. And I'd gotten myself this beautiful children's books with poems, and the images were just absolutely gorgeous. And I took it home, and that was like my little birthday gift to me. And then I was reading it, and the poems were like just brutally judgmental and like dark, and like was like the foolish and boastful, toad like died in a horrible. Anyway, it was very like, and he deserved it. And I was like, oh wow, I really don't. Even the titles were like, "You stupid bitch," It's like. So I was like, oh, I hate these poems, but I love these images. And then it was on my birthday, and I was hanging out with friends over Zoom, and I was just looking at the book, and I was like, I just feel, and they were like, well, why don't you just like cut out the images? And I was like, that's what I feel like doing, but it feels so taboo to cut it. And then I did. And then I started rearranging the words to be more positive and like kind. And then that was how I started doing the oracle cards, which has been so fun for me. Anyway, so yesterday I went back to that store and I found 2 books, and I didn't even realize it, but one of it was very similar. I was just attracted to the images and the title, which was Juniper Tree. And then it turned out to be these like Grimm's fairy tales, but like completely unrevised versions. So they're at their darkest. And like one of them is just like, and the rabbit went home and his wife was not there and he was sad. Like that was
Oh, God.
like,
So
and I was like, anyway, so it was just a cool like moment. And then the other one was this, and the illustrations were by Maurice Sendak, which is really cool, who did the things with monsters.
Where the wild things
Wild
are.
the wild things are, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the other book was called Sun, Moon, Star, and it's by Kurt Vonnegut and this other collaborator, and they made it, what they described it was, it's like a music for the eye instead of the ear. And it happened to really echo their process, something very cool, which was literally came out of a dream that DreadpirateKK had. So tell us your dream.
Yeah. It's interesting that you had, when you first said the juniper tree, just before I tell you my dream, the juniper tree, when I went to Sedona last year, oh my God, was that last year? Jesus Christ, in April of last year, or whatever, you would know where the vortexes were by the most gnarled juniper trees. So that feels like a really good energy to bring into whatever project you're going to be working on with this book.
Oh, and yeah, in my tree book, I'm like, I might as well look up juniper, and it's the spirit realms. Strong connections with the spirit world can protect you when you want to contact those. Act as a benevolent intermediary. That's so cool. That makes so much sense for being.
Yeah. Good energy
awesome.
There. Yeah. Okay. So let's get it. So last week, okay, first of all, we're recording this on December 2nd, in case anybody. So last week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, but I had this dream where I have a mouse problem in my house. I'm in an old farmhouse and shit happens, whatever. So I assumed I was having this dream because of the mouse problem in my house. But in the dream, there was some dust piles on the floor that I thought were dust piles. And then I realized, no, those are mice. I need to get them out. So I grabbed one and was taking it outside. And as I got closer to outside, I realized, no, this is actually a baby kitten. So like, shit, I got to bring it back inside and, take care of it, whatever. And then on my way back inside the house, I was like, this is such an arbitrary thing that we decided in this reality where like cats are more valuable and mice are rodents and gross and disgusting, like all that shit. And I was like, that's so crazy. And then I was getting this thought in my head in the dream, like, oh, I'm going to write this book called The Rat King, and it's going to have an oracle deck. And anyway, so I went back inside. I was like, that's interesting. I didn't think I was actually going to do it. Anyway, part of the message of the Rat King in my thought in the dream was that archetype energy of like the Rat King, like the beggar king, basically, like a very powerful being who lives on the streets. That's his kingdom or their kingdom, whatever. I keep saying man because it's king, but it doesn't have to be a man. You know what I mean? So, it's like a energy that like could be living in a mansion and all this luxury and, what quote unquote everybody wants, and he's like, fuck no, I like the streets where people live in the dirt and in shacks and like raggedy clothing. And like, that's our kingdom and we're free. And it's kind of like underworld energy, like the trash goddess stuff, like who would want to live there? Who thinks that that's great? But it's like, no, this beautiful place with lots of joy and celebration and, freedom. And they're just, he protects his kingdom, like this rat king, beggar king energy. And in order to have a meeting with him, you have to spend a day being a beggar, and whatever you get in your bowl, even if it's like 1 grain of rice or 1 coin or whatever you get, it's the act of spending a day being a beggar. And then you take the bowl of whatever offerings you got, and then you meet with him as your like initiation, you're offering to him, and you can actually, have this powerful ally at your back with this rat beggar king. And so I was like, okay, the mouse rat card in the deck is going to be the most powerful card in the deck. And it's going to be one of those things where normally you have oracle cards with like eagles and unicorns and all the cards that you really want to have. And if you draw a mouse card, it's like, I draw the mouse card, but this time it's gonna be like, oh my God, I drew that mouse card. Like, that's what I wanted the energy to be of this thing. And again, when I woke up from the dream, I was kind of like, I didn't think it was any particular message, but then I was telling Zadikat about this dream on a little mushroom trip we took earlier this week. And they were like, I think you need to write that. And I was like, oh, wait, I think you're actually right. And then I was like, I think you need to do the artwork. And you were like, well, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to push anything. And I was like, and so we spent most of the day just like working out the 33 cards that we're going to have for this Rat King Oracle deck. And it was the most amazing experience because it was just like the energy was flowing and everything was just like, it was coming to us just naturally, like all these different creatures. Like a lot of the stuff in my energy readings, especially with Zadikat, when they do readings for me, things like cockroaches and millipedes and, things you don't really necessarily think of as like cool energies, like a lot of insect type stuff and underworldy trash goddessy stuff comes through. So you were getting all this stuff like, yeah, we need to have the cockroach and the millipede and like all these different things. And we're going to have like Horus, and I think we need to have Anubis, but maybe not. Anyway, we were having all these like underworldy, like caves and spiders and just stuff that you wouldn't normally think of as like a cool oracle deck that everybody would want to have. And I'm like, listen, we were both just like, we have this frequency, this underworld frequency of like the kind of, you know, dirty, trashy, just the beggar king type energy. And there's going to be people out there who are on the same frequency, and we're making the deck for ourselves anyway. But there are other people we know out there who are like, will understand this and want it. And so Zadikat's artwork, oh, we have so many that are already like mostly ready to go card wise, like all of your images. And so it's just kind of going with what we have. Anyway, it was one of the most amazing collaborations that just sort of channeled through all at once. And yes, we still have some, you know, editing to do, and like shuffling around, and it's not like completely done, but we have an excellent start, and I am so excited.
It was, yeah, it was so much fun. It was so exciting. It was really exciting for me because I started doing my MS Paint drawings again in like 2019, and I was just putting them out there, and it was really nice, but I don't know, I just had this feeling about them, like I wanted them to, I don't know, but a friend of mine was actually like, you should make an oracle deck, and then I got really overwhelmed, and I was like, I can't think of like what the united theme, or, and then for you to come up with what it was, and then for us to be, we would literally be like, oh, what about this? And then I was like, I think it's this. And it would be an image that I had drawn that I hadn't even tied into that yet. But when you said it, I was like, I think that's actually what I was drawing, was that entity or energy or stuff. It was very, very cool. And
I think it's really cool. For 3 years at this point. It was like,
exactly. Because it's really nice because it takes a lot of like the workload off too, because it takes, you know, I don't exactly draw at a lightning fast speed. I have to kind of wait for the energy to be right and stuff. So it's nice that a lot of them are already done. It's really cool because somebody once described my drawings. They were like, it's like a cool child nightmare drawing. Like, anyway, yes. It's like, oh yeah, it's like underworld, but like I use very bright colors and like a lot of very cheerful stuff, but there's usually a bit of creepiness to it or something. There's also a lot of hybrid energy. So I'm just really excited about that. And we're thinking there's probably going to be also a sound component of some kind to accompany, which is really neat because you, DreadpirateKK, work so much with sound. So it's just really exciting. And for me, nothing is more exciting for me than like a new art project on my birthday. That's like the big birthday present for me. It's like, a new art project to work on, especially a collaborative one, because I haven't collaborated in a long time on a creative project with anyone.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up too, because that was one of the things that I think we're sort of clearing out as well. Like, because of this project we're working on together, things were coming up for me while we were talking about it, like old baggage around collaborations, because I haven't collaborated with anyone in a long time. And it's mostly related to like school or like old jobs that, you know, I had in the past that we would have to do group projects on. And it was just like not usually very fun for me. And so I knew that it was going to be fun with you, but it's like the baggage, like the old stories that come up with like, oh, this is not going to be fun, or, oh, me personally, I'm not going to have a good idea, or it's not going to be good enough, or nobody wants to buy it, or what the fuck am I doing? Who gives a shit? You know, that kind of stuff. And it was just like, we'd done enough work at this point that when those things were coming up for me, it was like, I knew that was to be witnessed and let go so that it can just channel through me. And later that night, actually, after we hung up the phone, I was doing like just a visualization, like I allow this to be easy and fun and channel through me with zero resistance, because I was feeling that resistance of like, okay, I got to do this right, or it's not going to be worth it at all. And it's like, just calm down. It's okay. It can come out easily. It can be very easy if you allow it to be. So I had that settle into my body, and I was like, okay, this feels good. So just in case anyone else is working through any of these other things as well, where stuff comes up to clear,
well, you know, it tied in because I had the same thing happen, and it tied in exactly with what you were just saying with it, which came through with your Castro update about what you said, which is like, if you're doing something, specifically what stuck out to me was the mental space. If you're doing something from the mental space and not the heart space, you're gonna be stressed out. You're gonna encounter resistance. Yeah, it's not gonna work. So you got to be from the heart space. And it's true. Like, as soon as I went too much into the mental space with it, it was like, yeah, which is fine. It's gradually pulling out of old habits. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. And so you've been it's been so long since we've had a podcast, but we've been getting you again through your dream, this Horus figure. And Horus was actually, so in 2020, before you and I knew each other, I was in this phase, this beginning phase of my awakening there was tons of Egyptian God stuff coming through. And it was actually a cool thing for me that I don't think I've talked about on the podcast, but it was really affirming at the time, because I would draw something and then I would show it to a friend of mine who knew a lot about mythology, because growing up I knew nothing. I didn't take in anything and I wasn't interested. And I think it was so this could happen. Like I had like a big block, like I'd never learned anything about anything. And then my friend would be like, oh, like I did a drawing. She was like, that makes me think of Horus and Sobek. And then I would like look it up and it was like, oh yeah, I just literally drew.
So cool.
This, and it would be like take me down this rabbit hole that was like relevant to the energies that I needed to be working with at that time or whatever. So one of them was Horus, and then you've been getting all these Horus dreams. And I also forgot that like the Eye of Horus is in this children's book that I'm like that's getting illustrated right now, that I'm working on getting published. It's Horus.
Yeah.
And I had, because it was way back in 2020, so I had forgotten everything that I went and learned about Horus. I was just like, okay, I know the Eye of Horus and he does something. I don't know, he's cool. And then you were thinking of him, you were thinking of Anubis. So then I went to look up what Horus actually, like what his purpose was. It was so funny. It was such a reminder of like, oh, you're on this spiritual journey and these guides are going to come to you and they're going to have such transcendent wisdom gems to share. So I'm like, okay, what did Horus do? And it's like, oh, Horus. And there was like, he was like in charge of Lower Egypt, and his brother, some relation to him, Set, was in charge of Upper Egypt. And then they were in a war of dominance over it. So of course, Set they were like wrestling, and Set tried to ejaculate on Horus, but Horus cleverly took the jizz and whipped it into the sea, and then took his own Horus's jizz and put it on some lettuce, because of course that was Set's favorite food, and then fed it to Set. And then they were like, went to the, elders committee or whatever to be like, so who has dominance? And they're like, well, we're going to call forth Set's sperm. And it was like, nope, it answered from the sea. So it didn't work. They're like, now we're going to call forth Horus's sperm. And it's like, oh, and it answered from inside Set. So clearly Horus. Anyway, it was just like it was like,
very interesting.
Real lessons. There's something to sink your teeth into, so to speak.
It was so weird. It was hilarious that I was confusing Anubis and Horus. Like, come on, they're so different. What the fuck? But that's just where we are. So
also just
I'm
like
clear now.
Lettuce.
It's your favorite food? Crunchy water?
Lettuce is your favorite food. Well, okay, now I know Horus has the head of a falcon, and it's like, what does Set have the head of a bunny? I don't know. But it's like, it's your favorite food. Not a food I would try to disguise the flavor of jizz in.
I know. It wouldn't really hide much, but maybe got some spices in there, fucking lettuce wrap of some sort.
And it also made me think of lettuce wrap. Something that like really, I remember being very scandalized when I first learned of it, but it's like really common. Have you ever heard of soggy cracker?
Oh God, no. And I'm afraid to know what it is, but I obviously have to know.
A game that guys, it's like teenage boys and stuff play, where they all sit in a circle and jerk off onto a cracker, and then
literally a circle jerk. Oh my God.
And then the last one to come has to eat the cracker.
Whoa.
And I don't want to like yuck anyone's yum for people who really love semen, but that makes me want to die.
Yeah.
A pile of cold semen on a cracker. But it's funny to think that they are, expressing the energy of Horus and Set.
Yeah, and there you go. There's a place for all of this stuff, and we will continue our apology tour for any of this, the stuff that you would normally just think of as not worth your time to invest in.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you gotta
have a soggy cracker.
On a cracker to exist.
Yeah, there you go.
Experience existence.
That's all we're doing is experiencing shit. That was another thing that I was starting to write in my Castro update that I'll be posting in December at some point, but it was just like, there's a lot of recalibration going on still, which whatever, that's just the energy we're in. And it's like, don't beat yourself up for, anything that you really need adjusting. Like if a collaboration falls through, or, if you're like, wow, I spent all this time learning this and now I'm being redirected to not do that anymore. And it feels like I just wasted so much time. It's like, no. You came here to learn shit. You came here to experience stuff. None of this is a waste. It's just a redirection. It's like, okay, you tried this, it didn't work. You're going to try something different. And that's literally all it is. And only we judge whether it's wasteful, good, bad, whatever label you want to put on it. So.
Do you want to share anything about, I think the last time we recorded, you were just getting ready for your move.
Oh, Lord. Oh my God. Yeah. It was the week I moved. I think we recorded on the 17th and I moved on the 19th. Oh my God. Speaking of that though, it's like time is a flat circle. I was going through some old Instagram posts and I saw that I had moved from Seattle to Richmond, Indiana, which is where I live now, my hometown. I moved from Seattle to Richmond in 2014 on September 19th. Like I left Seattle on September 19th. Guess what fucking day the movers came to put my stuff in the moving truck in Missoula to move to Indiana again, the same September fucking 19th. It was like, here we go. And I was literally coming back to the same, from West to Midwest. Anyway, it was just a wild date sync that I was like, well, this is on purpose. So yeah.
Which like numerology, like 10 completion of cycle energy.
Oh my God. Yes. Mind blow. Yes. I didn't even put that together. That is exactly what that is. So this is a pretty interesting. Oh my Lord. Okay. So yeah, the movers came on the 19th, whatever. And anyway, there's just, what else happened? Oh yeah. Then I spent about 2 weeks on the road, like visiting a couple of people in Colorado. Yeah. Just kind of taking my time to come across the country. And my mom and sister were working on the farmhouse to make sure that, well, they weren't, but they had someone doing a lot of projects that would be livable, because this place has been empty for a while. Like, yeah, it needed some work. And so at least I have a kitchen that works and a washer and dryer, and like everything is like ready to go. Since I've moved in, I've done a few things like, had to seal up some cracks where insects are getting in, like just basic little winterizing stuff. The window panes are original glass from like 1848 or whatever. And so it's like some of them just crack, and I literally have to put like plastic and cardboard over the broken panes, because they don't make window sizes anymore like this. Like you have to have specialized, anyway. So there's been a lot of that kind of thing. Then I had a lovely little sewer or sewage thing for, when was that? Scorpio.
Oh my God.
Like literal, when we were having the eclipse in Scorpio, like the solar eclipse, the solar Scorpio eclipse was about the same exact day I was dealing with this sewage thing. So it's like the south node, the literal anus of the zodiac, like flushing out all of the stuff. And I was literally dealing with piss and shit. But it was like you were pointing out though, it was like a grid work type thing, like, just flushing it out in the physical, but also energetic,
Yeah,
sense.
it was wild because I had gone too deep in that eclipse and I was over stimulated, and it had sent me into spiraling this really couldn't claw my way out. And then I didn't know that you were doing that. And then that day, I just started feeling better and better and better. And then like this week we were getting this updates in our group chat of like what was going on. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
It was very validating to hear you say that. It was very validating, because I was just like, I thought I was maybe just dealing with my own literal shit, and also, my own energetic shit, that I was like, okay, maybe I agreed in my soul contract to deal with physical poo in preparation for like clearing out some of my own grid. And it was nice to hear that it wasn't just for me, it was for my collective. So
it was incredible. Just felt like so much got cleared out that day, and like rippling out as well. Like from that point, it was really powerful. And like
it was a lot. Scorpio season this year really kicked me off.
Hell.
I think it kicked a lot of our asses. I was definitely not the only one. And I was going into this eclipse season expecting kind of like what we talked about before, where it's like, if you've done your work, you're kind of just holding the line. And so I was and that's kind of what happened. I didn't have super tower moments, but also I was dealing with stuff like that where I was like, I didn't expect to actually have to deal with so much bullshit, but like so much stagnant, deeply rooted energies got cleared out in Scorpio season. Like, I did not think I could go deeper into the underworld without a physical meat soup death. And here we were going into deeper and deeper layers. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this shit. Like, literally, it was the energy, like, especially in November, it really just came to a peak. So I was crawling through November and the rest of Scorpio season. But also in Scorpio season was a rebirth, which is clearly more Scorpio shit. It's like death and rebirth in Scorpio, transformation type energies. And I'd had that dream a couple weeks before in Scorpio season about me having a birthday in Scorpio season. And I was going to be the Scorpio queen. I was laughing about being the Scorpio queen, even though I didn't know the date. And so on Hecate Day, which is November 16th, I was doing my little ceremony of like giving up something that I've been holding on to for too long and ready to get rid of, like give Hecate the trash, like all this stuff. And then in my head, I got this phrase like born anew. And I was like, oh my God, today is my birthday. This is my like, oh, what the fuck? So anyway, I have a new
birthday changed. Yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah. So it was really, really valuable. And I cried a lot and got out so much stuff. And I even was just like, you're in the underworld, you do it like offering up this trash. And so it's like, I was asking for help too, because I was like, I don't know what else to give up, but I know there's something here. And so I just asked, the volcano trash goddess energy to be like, pull it out of my subconscious, whatever needs to actually get out of me, pull it out, because I can't see it and I need help. And so that night I dreamed about a really awful man and I killed him with a box cutter. And so as Zadikat very helpfully pointed out that I was not getting it all, it was like the part of you that was ready to die, you willingly and very vehemently just went for it. And I was like, oh, that makes me feel so much better, because it was not a fun dream. It was powerful because like I actually, did the deed, and he was.
Yeah. And what I find cool, because it totally fits your pirates, Scorpio queen and energy and underworld energy, is that you are able to actively kill off parts of yourself that way. And it's just fine. Like, you have an agreement with yourself, or like some understanding there that it's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, I don't mind being murdered or like murdering a part off to like be efficient and be like, it's done, And I think it's just, it's really interesting. Whereas for me, when I've tried to kill off any parts of myself, it's like not my path. There's so much resistance, and I have to, they immediately freak the fuck out. They're all like have the little wounded child in them. So it's like, I just have, so for me, it's a lot more about letting things die that want to die, which can be more of a slow. And when I just think it's interesting to like show that contrast between us, because a lot of times, you'll get a spiritual message about how to let something happen, and then it's like, well, that'll work for some people, and it's not. Like, that's why it's all about like what resonates for you specifically, because the same approach can be super efficient for one person and then like have the opposite like trigger them into like a dark spiral for another person, and vice versa. Like, waiting around for your part to die forever could be like really painful and unproductive for you, and it's just like, no, I'm going to do it like this. And so that was a cool dream. And you, speaking of your dream, you're just talking endlessly about your dreams today. There's like a million of them that are coming up. It's awesome.
It's been a lot.
You also dreamed about a friend who had a birthday on July 9th. And I was like, oh, I think that's me. I think my new birthday is July 9th. And it was this past summer, which was like a few days into my big trip where I went to Florida, then Colombia, then Mexico. And
I don't think I've heard you talk about this. I didn't realize it was you. I'm so excited because
maybe it got buried in one of the things, but I was like,
sorry.
At first I got stressed out and I was like, oh, it's coming this July, and I just really it was more of that energy of like, it hasn't happened, like the thing hasn't happened yet, and it was just like making me like my eye twitch, because it's like I've really been feeling like we're moving out of stuff and not like obviously moving towards stuff, but me personally, it's like we're done with a chapter. The chapter has to already be over, not another 7 months from now.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, wait a second, July was a big period for me. And I went back and looked, and it was just a couple of days after I'd been in Jupiter, Florida, which I went to specifically because we found out it was Jupiter with my friend, and like we'd gone to the beach and I found this stone that looked like Jupiter, and it was like very expansive and stuff. So I was like, well, that makes sense. I was like, yes, it already happened. So
yeah.
So
like that. Yeah, I felt in the dream that it had already happened, and I was trying to make it a future thing. I was like, was it a future thing? I was like, I don't think so. I think it was in the past. So I'm glad to hear you like validate that, because
anyway, I'll keep this brief, but I've been interpreting things backwards, I think, for a while, and it's been really stressing me out. That has to do with my gender, because what happened starting on that trip was I started to show up in friends' visions and dreams as a man. And then I started having dreams again about where like my guides were like 6 months on testosterone, like, and it's just started like, it just was provoking that feeling of like more to do, more hurdles. I don't know if I've talked a lot about the gender stuff, but I experimented with testosterone in 2021 for like a few months. And yeah, it just felt like another big hurdle in front of me. And when it first happened and all those dreams came, when I checked in with myself, my initial reaction was, this is not the right time. It's too many things. Like you're already pushing yourself in a million directions right now that are like very stimulating and intense. And like, it's not the right time to like add that to the mix. But then I immediately, as soon as I gave myself permission to wait longer, I had this huge freak out and got really triggered. I was like watching some show about where there was this non-binary person, and anyway, their journey, like it just got really triggered. So I just kept like kind of gritting my teeth and being like, no, this is the thing that I still have to do. And then you were talking about things being over, and like, anyway, there was just like so many signs about like, I've been moving out of the deep shadow work and all the intense stuff and like into integration. And it's like, it's time to like chill and just enjoy life. And I was like feeling like, no, but in order to truly enjoy life, I'm going to have to force myself to try testosterone again, even though it's like going to bring up a bunch of stuff and like blah, blah, blah. And then it was literally just today where I was like, this doesn't feel fun. And if it doesn't feel fun, I don't want to do it right now. Like, why don't I just trust the part of me that was like not, but I was still setting it up as like, well, if I don't do that, then I'm not taking my highest potential or what, like, I'm like not, but, and then anyway, there's a lot of messages that were like, hey, it's okay to not, to say no to something. Anyway, and then I suddenly, just as I was saying the thing about showing up in people's dreams and visions, I was like, it's already happened. Like, it's already there. That's why it's showing up. It's not because they're like, you're coming as this man, like masculine part of you. It's because we already see it. It's already in our visions. And like, it was like in my friend Steffi and you and Mike even. So it's like, why are you doubting that it's already there? And like setting yourself this thing and being like, I have to do this immediately. Cause I was like, and you were saying too, when we were doing mushrooms, you were like, well, it's good. What if it's just fun and not like a stressful thing? And so I was like checking in with myself, and I was like, what percentages really help me, and numbers really help me sometimes. They add that structure to things where it's like, this is no longer so nebulous. It's like, what % fun does it feel like right now? And I was like, it feels like 1% fun. Like there was literally a split second in time where it felt fun, and the rest of the time it felt like I just wasn't, like every time I think about calling my doctor again, I'm like, so I'm like, I don't think if something feels 1% fun, that's a big sign that it's like the time for me to race towards it. So yeah, anyway, I had a breakthrough around it. It still hasn't settled, and I'm still waffling and whatever. That's my process. My process involves a lot of agonizing and waffling. That's me. But it was really helpful just now. I don't know if we'll keep this in the thing, but it was very helpful.
I love it.
Because I was like, you know what? I think that part of me is already there, and I don't need to like push on it so hard.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you said all that. I really like how you process this stuff. I feel like it's helpful to hear for me, and I think it's helpful for anyone who listens. But anyway, I will cut it out if you want me to, but I really like it. But yeah, a lot of times you show up in my dream as you, like the way you are now, but a lot of times you show up as a dude. And so, yeah, you're right. It's definitely already here. And it's really cool because I always know that it's you, even though I question I second guess myself sometimes. I'm like, what's that, Zadikat? I'm like, yes, it was totally Zadikat. So it's usually a gay man, but sometimes it's not. But it's usually when I have a gay man in my dream, I'm like, there's Zadikat.
I mean, that's me. Like, I'm like, that's, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's me.
Pretty cool, dude. Pretty cool.
Gender's crazy.
It really is. Well, there's a huge recalibration going on here around all that stuff, especially with the divine feminine coming online so hard. It's like we've pushed ourselves into all these boxes. And it's like, no, those boxes are now flattened and taken out to the trash. Like you can be whatever you are on whatever gradient you are. And it's just now getting comfortable finding wherever that is, you know, and you can waffle about it or you can go straight for it. It's totally up to you. The path is yours to decide. So I love this. I think it's really helpful to hear you talk about it too, because it's like a journey that I think your frequency, you like when you talk about it, your frequency is going to draw people in who need that same, you know, witnessing of your process so that it can help them too.
There's a lot of stuff too. It's like really realizing like still within these categories that feel very now and not necessarily the future, which sometimes that's like kind of gets entangled with things for me too, because I feel like I have such a foot planted in the future where it's like, who gives a shit? Just like, I know, blorb, but like gender fluid specifically, so much moving back and forth.
Shape-shifting.
And it's, yeah, shape-shifting and like, what energy am I feeling today? What energy am I feeling in this moment versus that moment? And it comes with its own thing. It's like the story is about a little fox who just discovers that they're gender fluid. And I was finally realizing, I was like, oh, it needs to be specifically gender fluid. Like that, it's like, if you're a little kid, there's a lot of little kids that come in and really know right from the get-go, this is my gender. Nobody has to like help them to it. They just know, and they just need to like get out of their way. But with gender fluidity, I could see how it could be more, well, for me as a little kid, like it's like, because you're like, okay, well, you say I'm this, and I do feel like that sometimes. So I guess I'm just that because everybody says I'm that. So that, you know, it's like so much more nebulous. Anyway,
for sure, absolutely. I think
you're not like, oh, this is, you don't have that part of you that's like, no, 100%. Yeah. Although who knows, in the future, I think it's gonna, as we keep going, it's gonna get different and different. So anyway,
for sure. Well, the other interesting thing that happened in Scorpio season, incredible, like with the death and the rebirth and all of that stuff, that I wanted to make sure I mentioned here, just because it's so timely, and anyone else feeling into this or feeling crazy or whatever, I just wanted to, I don't know, it's just been so rough for so long, like 3 years worth of craziness on top of like already before 2020, we were all feeling like nothing made sense anyway, and everyone was tired. And so it's not just been this past 3 years, even though that's been the peak of the craziness, but it's just like everything. So the last day of Scorpio season, I had this like shattering moment, like there was a glass inside my third eye or whatever, and it just like shattered, and I realized I'd been asleep, and like, anyway, a bunch of just different shit. And that was like the start of the download like shift. And then the next day, the first day of Sagittarius season, I was in this crazy floaty, like I needed to earth, like I had to put my hands and my feet on the grass and just like stop floating, like that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so that day and the next couple, anyway, so there's a period of about 3 days where I was like, something happened and I couldn't figure it out. And so I finally put it together where it was like the old grid has been completely cut off now. Like no new energy is getting to it. The earth grid, the natural grid is online. Like that's where we are right now. However, it doesn't mean the darkness is gone, etc. Like we still have to clean it out, all this stuff. And so the dark entities who feed on that old fear energy are still here, but the unraveling is going to be happening very quickly because their food supply has like all they have is what's in the grid, and we're cleaning it up in addition to them eating it. So they're going to be going after each other, and like just the whole unraveling is going to be just now, like over the next however many years. It's just going to be so fucking fast because there's nothing new for them to eat. It's just the new grid that's getting the fresh energy and like becoming stronger and whatever. So as we flush out this old shit, anyway, my point is it's going to be getting easier. I'm not saying every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but at least the old grid has been completely disconnected. So if that helps anyone keep the faith a little bit longer, we've been waiting in this start energy and it's just felt miserable for so long. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because we're moving. The next chapters come in like March, April of next year, and it's gonna be wild and it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, and that's interesting. That's very interesting. And it also, like, I think we're gonna do a year in review and like a look ahead to the year of the rabbit. But I'll say one thing now that came through with the rabbit was like, it was that fastness, it was that quickness of excellent point.
So there's like some speed coming in, like speed, momentum, proliferation, energy coming in 2023, which is interesting. You just said about the grid. Oh, I was going to say, if you feel that something is numbing, parasiting off of some energy in you that you don't like you're feeling an agony of self-doubt and you're like, oh, something's feeding off of this, ask them to alchemize it for you. And like, you're like, okay, you can feed off of all of this. I just gave you a huge juicy treat and like turn it into something nice now. I've been playing around with that and it's nice. I had a big crab come in. I was like, is there something that can feed off my PMS today and like alchemize that? And this big red crab was like,
wow.
I forget the first time I did it, but it was like a big buggy thing. And I was like, okay, you're here, cool. So then just do the work for me.
This is really a fascinating tie-in to this oracle deck. It's like the cockroaches, the insects who are eating, the dung beetles who are eating all of this bullshit and alchemizing it into fertilizer for new growth. That's incredible. Oh, I love that insight.
The parasites can be our allies if we let them be, like
and I feel like the parasites get a really bad rap. Like, I know that we've been in a lot of misery, so I'm not discounting anyone's misery, but we asked them to help us in this game. Like we ingested them or whatever, we put them in our energetic field, whatever we did to fall asleep. And so they're doing what we've asked them to do. And it kind of got out of hand with like other entities who were, sort of hijacking some of that process. But like the insects, the parasites, they're not really to blame. They're our allies, but now we're just shifting the game into a love-based game. So the fear is still kind of really flowing. And it's like, use your allies to alchemize, like you were saying. I really love that. Also, I wanted to mention that 2019, another shit thing I was talking about in my Castro thing was like the thing I was already talking to you about, but I wanted to put it on in the episode of like timelines that got put on hold from 2019, basically starting in 2020, and basically timelines that should have gone forward in 2019, or you thought were going to go forward, not should, but like you thought we're going to go forward. We were in a time loop or like a karmic washing machine, whatever you want to call it, dealing with a bunch of shenanigans from 2020 to 2022. And now those timelines from 2019 are going to be finally moving forward. So when you come across opportunities or ideas or whatever the fuck you thought was going to happen in 2019, and then it got completely derailed, they're probably going to come back for a revisit or you want to do this now, like maybe your move got put off, like in your case for England or any of this stuff. Anyway, just another little thing to put out there for people who are like, why am I getting 2019 syncs? Well, we're moving forward with those timelines now.
Very important update, that very helpful update to hear for sure.
Yeah. I think it was a blessing that actually happened, because if those timelines had moved forward in 2019, it would have been fine. But now it's like supercharged, like whatever you were planning in 2019 or whatever was coming up for you, like it's going to be we've had so much alchemizing and so much clearing and like all this crazy, awesome stuff that we're coming at it from an even more powerful place. So it's really like the timeline you would have had in 2019, it's going to be even higher and more amazing. So it's all been worth it, but it hasn't felt like it in the middle of all this crazy shit.
Yeah. I've also been reflecting a lot. I mean, I know there's people, it's interesting because you're like a 2020 person, but you were on a more condensed one. So I feel like our journeys are in a lot of ways like on par of like transition points and stuff. And I know there's a lot of 2019 people out there who are in that cycle like me. But for me, that cycle was what I may have already talked about this, but it was a lot of like, okay, now you have to go and explore the shadows of like, which are, you know, all sorts of shadows and sorts of stuff, and like go into like the depths of things and really get into your emotions and really connect with your emotions and really look in all the scary places and like do all this intense emotional stuff. And then starting 2022, it was this integration where it's like, now you're doing practice. For me, it was a lot of relational stuff. And also I forced myself to travel a lot. I traveled a lot it was a joy, but I had a lot of fears built up around travel. And so I had to face those while I was doing it. It was really awesome. And then like also putting my work out into the world, the book, it was just like, now we're doing that part. And it's like, in order to be able to have the energy to do that part, you have to let go of how much it takes out of you to be constantly doing the really intense emotional stuff. And where am I going with this? I had a point when I started this initially about, oh, right. So that's what 2022 has felt like. It's like a very slow coming out of the healing and just it's like healing and then integration of the healing and then just like existing. And for other people, it's different. Like some people are on a completely different path and this isn't relevant to them. But part of this phase that I'm in now, so there's like 2 levels to this metaphor that my guide sent me, which was one of them you can just have as a metaphor for like existing in a human body on earth, and the other one is doing the dark night of the soul part, shadow investigation part of a spiritual journey. So it's like the metaphor was you're in an amusement park and it's got everything you could want, including just beautiful natural places to hang out and animals, and just like you could just go hang out in a beautiful little oasis and chill and see some dolphins frolicking and beach or whatever you like at the amusement park. It's glorious. And so you're there and you're having fun and you're investigating, and then you see the haunted house ride and you're like, ooh, that seems fun. Like, let's do that. And then you go into the haunted house, and then you're in the haunted house and you start to like, you know, the goblins and the ghouls start to jump out at you. And then you just stay in the haunted house and you forget that there's anything outside the haunted house, and you just sit down and live in the haunted house, and you're like, this is existence now. What else is there outside of the haunted house? And your friends are like popping in to be like, hey, you know, TikTok, like, you want to go on that roller coaster, or you want to go back to the oasis or something? And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's just nothing but this haunted house that's really scary and really stressing me the fuck out. And so you're floated in the middle of that haunted house. And then finally you see the door and you're like, oh, and you start to move towards it. And then if you're me, what happens is something else will jump out at you. You'll be like a few steps away from the door, and then you'll be like, wait, what was that? And then you'll just go and like, oh, this thing jumped out at me. I'm going to go like talk to it for a few hours and sit with it and think about it a bit more and get really freaked out by it and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you're like right by the door. And it's like doing that. It's like that part can be really frustrating if you're in that part, which is where I feel like I've been in for the past, since getting back from my trip. The trip felt like was so expansive and a huge roller coaster, but just like, yeah, very, very expansive. And they came back and it was like very much like, oh, the end of the haunted house is in sight. And I'm just gonna, every single little thing that jumps out at me, I'm gonna be like, ah! Even if it's like, it's just like they're just like sitting out like on a popsicle stick, like a little cutout of a ghost.
That's what
I'm like,
yes.
What the fuck is that? Jesus Christ, oh Jesus Christ. And they're like, it's a ghost on a piece of cardboard on a popsicle stick, and I'm like, oh God, I better just sit down and relax. Yeah. And maybe I'll go back there a little bit because I just yeah. So that's what it's like to leave the haunted house in my experience.
That's a really good metaphor for what these past few years have felt like. But you're right. Like it feels more like the past, I don't know, half of a year in particular, where it's ramped up like you could leave. And it's like, no, my roots are here.
Yeah.
But, soon the haunted house will just be like, it will be super cardboardy in general. Although I feel like it'll be cardboardy in general for those of us who want it to be that way. And then there are those people who are very much still like, I would like to have that experience. And that's going to be
exactly. Some people are going to stay and hang out more in the haunted house and take their own journey with it and stuff. And
that's fine.
But yeah,
we're ready to come out. It's going to be cardboard and it will fall away and it's fine. We have anything else we were going to talk about? I can't think of anything, but I know you have stuff, right?
I have a lot of stuff. I think I have stuff for the next episode a little bit more, but there was a funny thing. Okay, so I just have to share this because it was like, speaking of like Earth being a haunted house. So this actually started because I was talking to Mike about how I ages ago I was watching a nature documentary about the bears in like the Canadian West Coast, and it was showing how it was like I don't know exactly which bear, but it was a brown bear in a river hunting salmon. But it was like what the bears do is they just eat the skin of the salmon and then they throw the whole rest of the salmon away. But it goes into the soil so the forest there, it's got so much fertilizer that the forests are like crazy tall. Yeah, so it's like, it seems like really, it seems wasteful. It also seems like if you're a bear, why would you only want to chew on a fish wrapper? Like, I feel like you're a big bear, big mouth. Wouldn't you want like a nice satisfying whole? But it's like, I'm just gonna like the wrapper.
That's incredible.
It actually like works out really beautifully. So anyway, so then I went to look up what bears eat, and it took me to grizzlies. For some reason, it was specifically, and it's grizzly energy, whatever. I was facing some pretty big fears and stuff. Okay, just what grizzly bears eat is just so bizarre and fucked up. Some of it's just bizarre and some of it's really fucked up. Anyway, I'm just gonna like try to like go through and get to the most weird and fucked up stuff. Okay, well, first of all, we all like I think most of us, if you grew up around, like hearing anything about bears, you know that they eat a lot of berries, which is interesting. And they're like 1,000 pounds, and then they mostly subsist on
crazy.
Like 80 to 90% of their diet can be like berries and plants, right? Isn't that crazy?
A little bit.
Interesting.
I love it.
And it's like very cool, But then, okay, so then it's like, yeah, they eat a lot of ground squirrels and fish and stuff. You're like, yeah, it just starts to get fucked up. And you're like, wait a second. They eat marmots. They prey on them when the marmots are in hibernation. And I'm like, hey, that goes against, like, it's like, what the fuck? It's like if you were a marmot and that happened, like, wouldn't you be like, we live in a fucking society, man. Like, what the fuck?
I would be so pissed.
It's off limits, right?
Well, as Fezzik would say, that is not sportsmanlike. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I also forgot to mention they eat a lot of bugs. In Yellowstone National Park, the grizzly bears can obtain half of their yearly caloric needs by feeding on moths. Again,
how?
Like, what exactly?
What? Whoa.
And then it's like, okay, so they're eating the rodents, the little creatures, and that's what I would expect. They eat raptor birds, which is interesting because they'll like eat bald eagles, which is like, whoa. What? And then it's like, oh, they'll eat deer, yeah, of course. Moose. Sometimes they eat bison. It's like, whoa, you are getting really Yeah, and it's like this is an animal that can subsist off of like moths and berries and like ladybugs. You know, these ladybugs. And then it's like fucking taking like I just was like before it's like 10% of protein, it goes and takes down a bison. Okay. So this is the one that really it actually really triggered me because I was like, if I saw this, I would be traumatized. Grizzly bears will sometimes eat black bears.
Oh, I think I knew that actually.
Oh, I did not know that. I was like, again, it's like, don't do
that's
that.
not great. I forgot that was a thing. Dang. That's like cannibalism.
Exactly.
We've done apologies for cannibalism, so I guess we shouldn't be upset about that.
I know. I just wasn't in the frame of mind for. I was like, last night I was not happy. I was like, no, I don't want to think about that.
That's
and then
terrible.
the final one. Okay, so we're like, we got bison. We've got another freaking bear. Like who? Really? Also, like who has the energy? Like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, just go eat a bear. It's so easy. You've got to go like tackle and like fight another bear. And then they are also known to scavenge on dead or washed up whales. Up to 10 large adults have been seen eating a dead humpback whale.
Where? Oh, like
they literally eat
crazy.
Like
wow.
There's nothing they don't eat. It's just
yeah, they will eat anything. I had no idea their diet was that diverse.
Like I just
what is
happening? Like moths and berries and ladybugs to a fucking humpback whale and another bear. Anyway,
that's pretty wild. That's pretty.
Yeah.
Well, that's like kind of vulture energy right there. If they're eating humpback whales and that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, but that's also trippy. Like they scavenge. They don't.
Yeah.
They also don't have to eat everything. They can just scavenge. It's like It's like they could lead an incredibly chill existence of scavenging and berry eating, but then sometimes they're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna fucking eat a black bear. Like, oh
my god.
Also, their Latin name is like Ursus horribilis. It's like great. It's like great, right. Like big horrible bear or something.
Yeah,
it's
that's
so
right.
Funny, which I know that's the grizzly, but it is funny to see it in Latin.
Yeah, the association of the word of horribilis, or however you say it, that's pretty wild.
It's like, oh, that thing's fucked up.
They are pretty intimidating. Whoo, boy.
Like if you were watching it as like a nature, like a biologist or something, you're like studying and you're like, it's like eating its and you're like, oh, how interesting. And then it just keeps escalating and escalating. You're just like, good God, when will it stop? Anyway, you go grizzly bear with your intense and omnivorous ways. Power to you.
Isn't it funny that we associate Arcturus with the bear, the grizzly bear? Why do we do that again? Oh, it's in the constellation of the bear. Arcturus.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, boots or whatever. I can't remember how to say it, but
yeah, I'm sure there's a metaphor that was coming through to me, but I just felt like being very shocked and scandalized by what I was reading. Or just like stunned by the moth thing. Like,
yeah. And it's also interesting because like that energy, or at least as it comes through for like, the energetic work that we've done, it's just so nurturing and maternal, and which you can be both. Look at that. The divine feminine can be absolutely all of those things, and it's perfectly normal. Like we will be a black hole of destruction, and we can also be nurturing.
I know nature can be a real trip and like really wild stuff goes down, but I think there should be I think we should adhere to some of these rules. Like, don't go after a fucking marmot who's hibernating.
It's got to be sports like
Dick Cheney.
Well, that's gonna go on some merch. A big picture of a bear, and it's like, what are you, Dick Cheney? And the bear's just like, huh?
Anywho,
I love
my thoughts on bears.
I love it. Thank you. I needed that laugh. Anything else?
They're so big. Anyway, they're very cute. Also, they're terrifying, and they look like humans walking around in suits, having alarms,
really
and like really being silly. I just shared a video on Instagram today that was this bear in a big, like somebody had, I don't know if it was specifically for the bear, but someone had put out a big like pool of water, but like a big tub thing, and the bear was just splashing around in it, but in such an uncannily human way.
It's really wild how
just
they're
looking like
chilling.
it had had too many brewskis.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah, the animal behavior is getting pretty interesting the past few years. They're just feels more human-like, which I don't like comparing. Humans are not like the ultimate or whatever. It's just interesting to see such a different species of things acting in a way that we do or whatever, instead of what we would associate with typical animal behavior. And now it just feels like so much more.
And all these animals connecting with other animals really
Yes.
interestingly. And it's like,
Yes.
it's very cool.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of like dogs playing with baby ducks and thinking they're a duck themselves. And it's just so cute. They're all like, it's just all kinds of what you would think of as predators hanging out with prey, but in a family,
Yes.
playful way. So
Yeah, it's very cute.
Integration of some sort there.
Yeah, and I mean, just having had cats, I don't know, but definitely the communication like really upped between me and my cat, where it was like when she started doing her thing where she would tap my hand, she would come and sit next to me on the couch, tap my hand with her paw, and then pet her own head to say I want pet, because I would like, she comes up and I would just like not tuned into her or what she wanted. And sometimes she'd just like, poke at me and I'd be like, yeah. And so she would do that. Look at me, pat her own head. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
I mean, it was adorable. It was so cute. Wow. But I was like, holy shit, this is next level.
That is next level. Very good word for it. Oh my God. Well, already the freaking barn cat that I have that I'm not wanting to let in the house, he's like, I'm going to come in one of these days, like he keeps getting closer and closer to the door and then meowing at me and like kind of wanting me to pet him, but then like he'll run away if I try to. And then the past couple of days since our mushroom trip, because he was here for your support or something, like he was around the house the entire day we were doing the mushroom trip together. And I know he was here for you. And since that time, he's been like he'll come up to the door when I let Guinan in and he's like, I'm coming in too. And I'm like, no, you're not. You have a bed outside. Like, and then now I'm just kind of like, I'm pretty sure he's communicating that we're gonna have a closer relationship than just a barn cat relationship. I'm like, fuck, here we go. I'm gonna wait for a minute, but Bert, yes, you channeled his name, which is, I love it. The illustrious. Oh, speaking of Guinan, let's get him up. He just walked in here.
Oh,
he's been on the couch.
Oh, your beautiful hybrid kitty.
That's another addition that I forgot to mention since the move is this little, I don't think we've talked about it on the podcast. If you're watching the video version of this, he's a Siamese cat with like tiger, tabby, whatever the fuck, face and feet. And it looks like he's been hybridized in like a Franken-cat way. And he's perfect. He's fucking amazing. So he's
so unique and gorgeous.
Coming up here for our final moments, because he's like, well, we're talking about my friend Bert, so I'm coming up to see what you're saying.
Hi, Guinan. You are the best. Oh, kitty energy. I think they've just sensed my big aching need for cats since my kitty passed.
I think that's probably, they're like, they know I'm talking to you. They know I'm talking to you, and they're like, okay, we know that they need us. So
thank you, Guinan. Oh yeah, it's so nice to see kitty.
He is purring, so we're giving some good cat transmissions to whoever.
I love it. That feels like a good ending, very tranquil ending spot.
Yeah. He's like, all right, what are we doing now? Sleeping again? Or should I go outside and run around like a zoomie? Well, Well, it was really nice to talk to you and record this episode. We haven't been on here for a while because we've just been, oh my God, like cannot. So this was a good feeling of getting back into
a lot of resting and do nothing energy. So yeah, it's nice to record. And then definitely have a lot to like say for year-end review and looking forward to 2023. I'm looking forward to that. We're recording that one too.
Me too.
It'll be fun.
Oh wow. And we're already in December, so that we'll be doing that fairly soon, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a year end of like the year of the tiger more than
yes.
2022 for me is like straight into January. But yeah, still pretty soon. I'm just gonna stop the recording, but not necessarily have to stop talking to you.
Cool. I love it. Well, we'll see you for the year-end review then.
So long, people. Yeah.